Awesome. Are you based in Germany?
Yeah. So it's basically on west of Munich.
Oh, okay, nice. I
Yeah.
uh I usually go to Berlin when I come. So, but I guess it's
You're
the
from Berlin.
commonplace. No, 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 I'm from South Africa, but I live in
Yeah.
New York City.
Nice.
But I have a lot of
Nice.
friends in Berlin, so I often go there.
Nice. 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 I also have a friend from South Africa. He's also living in Munich, and
Okay.
he's also founder. So
I feel like because of like the time zone between South Africa and Germany, the
yeah.
whole of Germany comes to South Africa in the winter time because it's summer in South Africa. And
Yeah.
so yeah. And then I guess
Absolutely.
vice versa.
So yeah. I mean, first question is about you and what Calibrium does.
Yeah, so myself, I'm the founder of Cerebrium. I was born in South Africa. That's where we started the company. And I've started companies my entire life since I was 19 across e-commerce, blockchain, machine learning. Had a lot of failures, but a lot of successes as well. And Cerebrium is basically a solution to a problem that I solved in my or have at my experience at my previous company, which was that getting creating AI products was extremely prohibitive in terms of getting access to talent, the unit economics, the time it takes to get something live, and just also the education gap, I would say, between like theory and production. But when you get it right, it really changed our company. And so me and my co-founder thought, how can we make machine learning more accessible to companies at earlier stages? So that's kind of like the inception of how Cerebrum was born, and we're a serverless infrastructure platform that makes it easy for companies to build AI applications. Now,
Mhm.
AI applications are very broad. So what I mean by that is, we have clients that build, voice agents, we have clients that fine-tune and host LLMs, we have companies that do breast cancer detection and like, pick up defects on manufacturing plants. Really just anything that requires both CPU and GPU compute. And what we've basically done is we've kind of got two layers to our platform, or two components, if you call it that. So you can think of Cerebrum as kind of a software layer on top of data centers, and it consists of two components. One is an infrastructure optimization component. So we've built our own context-aware file system, we've optimized our network and storage layers, we've built our own custom Docker build kit. And what that's allowed us to do is get our cold starts down to about 2 to 4 seconds, which means
Mhm.
we can start up and spin down models and applications extremely quickly where you only pay for the compute that you use. And also we've done things like where you can allow you to deploy globally so we can reduce latency and things like that. And also just like our kind of storage read and writes are extremely fast for the model weights. The second component is kind of the software layer, which is, what are the abstractions that we create to make building AI applications easier? So how do I do hyperparameter sweeps for fine tuning or like testing models that I'm about to train? Or how do
Mhm.
I do, token streaming or implement WebSockets? Or how do I do fire and forget jobs and things like that? So we basically created these abstractions around Python that you can basically do that.
Mhm.
And today, we have clients globally, all the way from hobbyist developers to billion-dollar companies. Yeah, I don't know what else to.
Okay. I mean, I've been already doing that. So you provide the integrations layer for making it as a SaaS service for infrastructure layer, and everyone can host their models, but also you are educating people how they can hypertune specific model, and then what is the best practices to do that as well.
I mean, look, we're not a consulting company. We're more like a platform.
Okay.
So you can kind of think of it as like as a Vercel or a
Mm-hmm.
similar platform where you and your team have to build the product on our platform. And
Mm-hmm.
it's up to your team's expertise, because the one thing that we learned is every team has unique use cases, data,
Yeah.
constraints, and then just so many variables. So we wanted to create a platform that, I guess, engineers are tough customers. So a platform that provides a large level of abstraction, but at the same time enough flexibility, since a lot of engineers, kind of value flexibility.
Perfect. I mean, every company is building wrappers around OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini, RPs. So, I mean, what was a moment convinced you like AI infrastructure is a worth betting on?
I mean, we started this before even GPT was released. It just kind of, before that we were focusing on more regression models, which were like, I guess, the models that were interesting before then. And our kind of, insight was, exactly what I said, just the difference between talent and education was just huge. Two was we found like the biggest unlock that AI has ever done is personalization in terms of, when I type something into GPT, it's a personalized response. When I go onto Netflix, it's personalization. Like, I think that's what kind of AI basically boils down to. And we also just knew, like I said, about companies have very unique constraints of what they want to create. And we just don't think that's to a one size fits all. And also,
Yep.
one thing we commonly see is at the moment, every company starts off with using OpenAI and Anthropic as like an API when they start their AI journey. But as soon as they get more educated in terms of they understand how prompting works, they understand what the effect of input and output tokens have on latency and throughput, then they start wanting to fine tune it to their own settings. And obviously, it shows that fine tuning a smaller model on your data actually performs better than a bigger model. And so typically what we see is as customers get more educated in fine tuning and prompting and everything like that, they actually save a lot more costs. They can kind of have more control over their SLAs because if I'm using a batch API, I can be
Mhm.
affected by external traffic. And so that's why companies prefer to kind of, work things internally.
Perfect. So basically, the Cerebrium is providing a more use cases or is prominent use cases for the batch processing, where they can start a specific workload and they are starting a server and processing it, and then will be cost effective for the batch processing for the specific time window where you're starting the servers compared to the real time, which is running 24 by 7.
Yeah, I mean, we have companies that do like a variety of different, and you have that flexibility again. Some of our customers do run things 24/7 just because that's the nature of their service. Other
Mm-hmm.
customers, it's very sporadic. So, for example, they only have something running during business hours, and then other than that, they're pretty much dormant.
Yeah.
And so, again, on our platform, you can kind of alter your service or plan how you want to run it, whatever suits your business and like cost performance trade-offs.
Understand. It's interesting. I'm also promoting a lot of small, middle, small language model or micro language models, which have been launched now in open source area. I also agree one shoes doesn't fit for all the feeds, so it's required to be a tune specific model, and I mean the open source models are going to be staying there, and the infrastructure requirement will be also there. One thing I saw on a website, so Cerebrium is claims up to 40% lower GPU cost compared to other providers. Like you can call it a traditional cloud, AWS, Azure. Can you share some secret sauce, like how you're doing it and what makes you better compared to the other competitors?
Yeah, so one thing is just actually just the serverless technology that we built. So because we can basically start up an instance in 2 to 4 seconds and like load your entire environment, companies get a lot of cost saving from that. If you're
Hmm.
running something 24/7, the cost saving isn't 40%. But if your workload is very volatile, then the cost saving is roughly around there. The second thing we do is like we really optimize resource allocation. So I'm sure you've seen all the articles that show resource allocation across companies in the AI space is like at peak times like 70%, and then typically they're only
Hmm.
utilizing 40% of their like compute. What we do is we charge you exactly for the resources you use. So if you think about it, I think an H100, an 8 times H100 comes with like I think like I don't know 400 CPUs and like 1,000 GB of RAM. And what
Hmm.
we do is like you can tell us like, look, I want one H100 GPU, but I want two CPUs and 2 GB of RAM. We charge you exactly for that compute. And that's also where customers get like one high utilization and then I guess much more like a much lower cost. And so that's kind of the things that we do different to competitors. I guess the second thing is we also allow you to run globally. So you can deploy in the US, Europe, India, Australia, wherever you want. And we adhere to any security and data compliance requirements you may have. I'm sure like, GDPR is big in Europe.
Yeah,
Singapore and Korea's got like big data residency requirements. Saudi has a lot of data sovereignty requirements
absolutely.
and many others. And so what we've actually helped our customers do is actually kind of go global and access new markets while taking care of all data constraints that they have. And then other things is because we run across multiple clouds, we're able to access, GPUs at different prices. We don't have capacity issues when running GPUs. And so, that and then I guess there's a bunch of other stuff that we do that's pretty unique, but I guess those are the ones that
Mhm.
stand out.
Okay. Maybe one question on infrastructure side. Do you also have similar like AWS Spot instances, like where you specific hours, if you're using these instances, then it will be saving a cost?
We don't have that yet. It's been pretty requested. Like customers have told us
Hmm.
they want to send us workloads where they can give us like an SLA saying, "Hey, I have this workload. Let's say like it's a batch processing workload, and I don't really care when it's done, but as long as it's done within the next 6 hours, just like give me the lowest price." And so it's interesting. It's not so much spot. It's kind of like I guess a new phenomenon, which is just like whenever this thing like can happen, just whatever the lowest cost is, just do it.
Hmm. Now let's talk about the customers. You also have some customers like Tevus, Deepgram, Wapi, um, mostly on the voice AI, real-time avatar, and also healthcare, you mentioned. What is most exciting application you see based on trends of user using the platform?
I mean, interesting, interesting use case. I think the ones that we're seeing the biggest, I guess, ROI for businesses is definitely
Hmm.
voice. It's clearly like, reducing time, cost, for a lot of clients. I would say from a business perspective, that's really working well. Um, I don't know. I will say the digital avatar space is like definitely very interesting because just how good like lip syncing is coming, how they can like show frowns, and
Hmm.
what people are working on there. The one thing that's pretty cool about our company is companies obviously start building like their next big release or like just when they've started their company, their product on our platform, they often ask us about how to solve certain issues or to test our platform with them or anything along those lines. So we do get like an early look into a lot of platforms, which is very cool to see.
Hmm.
Um, I will say, yeah, some of the stuff that like coming out with like browser agents is also pretty interesting right now. So how someone can do like a DoorDash order,
Yeah,
which is pretty interesting. So yeah, I don't know how much I can say from what I've seen because I don't know if some of these platforms are live, but yeah, I would say digital avatars is pretty interesting for me. I think it's only going to get better. And then also I guess the browser agents are pretty fascinating at the moment as well.
yeah. I see this also in the healthcare industry. The avatar or AI receptionist, this kind of use cases are growing a lot. Um, what are the challenges you see in this market compared to the HIPAA security and all this stuff? Um, how well AI can execute or voice AI can execute these kind of use cases without compromising securities compliance like HIPAA?
That's an interesting one. I think there's still a lot of work to do. I mean, the biggest way is, just through evaluations. Like you need to have evaluation pipeline set up in order to determine, okay, if I'm going to switch from OpenAI to Anthropic or vice versa, am I going to suddenly expose data information or things like that? I think the second thing is you also have to think about internal controls. So like who has access to logs of the phone calls that customers are having where they're exposing, their social security number or their medical aid number or things like that. Which, to be honest, I don't think is unique to voice AI. I mean, even on platforms that happen now, I mean, that's always been the case of who has access to it. So
Yeah.
I think like the issues aren't that different. I think the only thing that we are seeing is that because it's very dynamic, um, it's just a lot custom like our companies are a lot more wary about going to production and what use cases are handled by these voice agents. I think that's why most companies are typically going for like internal use cases first, because
Mhm.
if you expose like a company secret internally, it's not the biggest issue. But if you expose one customer's information to another, then it's like a huge issue. So I would just say
Yeah.
like when it comes to very sensitive workloads, typically we see, and also the bigger the company, we typically see that it works for internal use cases better than external.
Yeah. Maybe the last question. Where does you see the voice technology will sit in 5 years? Um, will be just an interface, or what is basically the futuristic AI forecast which you have in your mind for the next 5 years?
Specifically in voice or just anything?
Let's talk about the voice AI, and then we'll talk about general AI.
Um, with voice, I mean, look, I think a lot of things is at the moment, a lot of like research and time has gone into like just English voice. And multilingual, while growing, still has a lot of gaps in terms of like transcription models, text-to-speech models, obviously LLMs as well. Because also, I mean, I don't know if you speak any other languages, but every language has a different nuance. And so
Yeah.
it also kind of, and like how you say things. So I don't know if that's fully captured yet. A lot of our customers who, are working on French models tell us that like transcription models aren't that great and the way that they speak. Also, I think you have to have different prompts again
Hmm.
because there's nuances. So I think that's pretty interesting. People are still going for like the lowest latency and cost. I think, we've already reached, 400 milliseconds end to end. So I don't think it's going to go lower than that. I mean, it could, but what we see is that if an agent replies too quickly, it feels a bit unnatural. So you kind of have to make it wait just like at least like half a second.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I would honestly say that's where it's going. I think there might be some like advancements in like kind of taphonomy.
Hmm.
At the moment, I would say that's like a lot of customers are complaining about latency and cost when it comes to that. So those are kind of my predictions for voice. I think, again, it's just a kind of improving the current state of things. In terms of AI as a whole, one is, I mean, it's a very interesting debate because there's so much money being spent on data centers and people are like, we're in a bubble.
Yep.
And I don't know, I think we're still like underestimating how much like compute companies are going to use and what the effects are going to be of AI. I think it's going to be in every part of a business.
Hmm.
Um, and so I still think like, you can already see how much investment is going into data centers from like, hedge funds or investment banks, as well as just like the largest cloud providers. Um, I do think that compute will be the number one spend for companies over salaries, which it
Yep.
typically has been salaries. And it's just because one, compute's expensive, but then two is, as you can see on all the, all the reports, AI is replacing certain workflows of a business.
Hmm.
And so it's enabling companies to scale a lot more. Um, and then, yeah, I think just the the kind of customer service experience bar that's going to be set is going to be extremely high because, like I mentioned, AI kind of unlocks personalization at scale. So to do personalization at scale, I think consumers are going to get used to a very certain service standard. And so I think it's
Hmm.
going to make businesses like, I guess, a lot more competitive. Um, yeah, I would say those are the main ones kind of come to mind.
Yeah, perfect. So voice technology is as real-time, personalized AI. What do you think about humanized AI? Because a lot of the like GPT generated content is not looking like it's human is talking. So also the content style, the voice. I mean, voice is getting improved, but the content is not. So you can see a lot of content is getting detected as a GPT generated. Do you think also that can be also beneficial or coming reduced in the future where we are not able to recognize if it is generated by human or AI?
I know that's always an interesting thing because like everyone has a different way of speaking. I mean, I guess if you and me had to write an essay, we'd probably write it completely differently. And
Yeah.
so I don't know what that's going to look like in the future. How is is my browser going to like translate all web pages into a language that I prefer? I mean, that's something that's interesting to think about. Um, and then also like, is there a benefit knowing that a human did this versus not? Because if you think about like a team producing content, like a case study, I mean,
Yeah.
that's a team putting their thoughts together, and now we're saying that GPT content we wouldn't trust. I think it's because of the hallucination issues, but I don't know if you saw OpenAI literally released, I think, a research paper over the weekend or
Yeah.
last week that
Yeah.
hallucinations is an issue with binary classification. So maybe once we start trusting like the output a lot more, maybe people don't care if it's GPT generated. So
Hmm.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. I mean, outside of the podcast, I was doing a research yesterday, spent I think 2, 3 hours, and try to reduce the ChatGPT content with the prompting from 100% GPT generated to 12% with the zero GPT, and there are also other tools to basically detect it. It's interesting, and but the prompting will not solve it. But yeah, that's also growing market and understanding. Um, Voice AI also can be look like a human when it's having a empathy, emotions together with the right content.
Yeah, I
Perfect.
mean, there's a lot of like text to speech models that come out with emotions now. Like, I'm not sure if you saw
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I mean, Sesame was the first one that
That's
did
me. Yeah.
come out that like did
Yeah,
that. I mean, other models are now catching up, but where they had
yeah,
like giggles and emotion in it. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely gonna get there.
yeah. Perfect. Looking forward. Thanks, Michael. That's all question I have. Do you have any question? I mean, for me?
Well, separate to the podcast. It's more
Yeah.
about you obviously mentioned like you guys are running stuff globally. Well, I guess just in the EU, and also
Hmm.
like cost and performance and things always on as like a consideration for
Yeah.
you. So obviously now I've told you about Cerebrium, so it'd be interesting to see if your use case is something that we could solve on our platform in terms of like allowing you to run models, extremely
Mhm.
performantly that reduce costs, but then it give you the flexibility to kind of implement, whatever suits your business use case.
Yeah. Um, so for the perspective of Eon, currently we are using Azure AI Foundry. So, for example, the Azure infrastructure cost will be always comparable with with the Cerebrium. So we will reach out to you maybe in future for the self-hosted models use cases. And currently we are using Azure infrastructure. That's also very costly, and it's also there's a governance team also in the Eon. We also have to discuss with them, and they will ask why. Then we have to provide the comparison metrics. So maybe I'll reach out to you to compare with the Azure infrastructure compared to the Cerebrium, and then we can discuss how we can proceed.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, let me know. What I'll do is I'll send you the recording of this, and then I'll also just,
Mhm.
I can follow up with you in a couple months and see how things are going, and then yeah, we can see if there's a better time to chat.
Yeah, just I'm sharing for your information. I posted on a LinkedIn, but you can also find it. That's the use case which we discussed about the re-ranker, and I also put that in a Cohere um, testimony. I gave a testimony to Cohere for reusing it, but I will also provide you the detailed summary.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
I'm also a big fan of Voice AI. I've been using, before ChatGPT Drive, I was doing a voice to text analytics. So voice bots. So it's also growing market, and I'm also very happy to see it's growing. And so this is a post.
Okay, got it.
And I was using a speech as a speech AI, and also we trained or fine-tuned the model at the time with around 140 voice files. But then Whisper came out, and then then we have to train the Whisper model again. So yeah, it was, but everything was done on the Azure platform. uh, yeah, and it's currently, that's why I'm gonna compare for every platform we're going to choose compared to what we are using right now.
Awesome. We're looking forward to it. Yeah, let me read these and I'll get back to you if I have any comments or questions after it.
Absolutely. It was nice talking to you and nice to know about you. If you come to Munich, definitely we can have a meetup together. And also, I will also introduce you my other South African friend. His name is Rian. So you can also, I will also provide his LinkedIn profile to you. So
Awesome. Thanks so much. We appreciate it.
appreciate it. Thank you
Have a
very
good
much.
one. Bye.
Bye bye.